Welcome to another episode of Bucket List Coach Web Show Live. Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to Bucket List Coach Web Show Live. My name is Robin Stern, and I am your Google guru. I'm also the executive director of Be Better, Not Better. And I also just ate a big mouthful of pretzels because Cindy's intro is normally about 45 seconds. So she started the intro, and I said, "Hump," with a big mouthful of pretzels. So before I go any further, and without any further ado, as the ultimate professional that I am, hang on. Oh, my goodness. Wow. Leave it up to the Marines to totally just, yeah, okay. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Bucket List Coach Web Show Live. My name is Robin Stern, and I am your Google guru. I'm also the executive director of Be Better, Not Bitter, a 501c3 located in Dallas, Georgia. And today, we are celebrating Aviation History Month, Gratitude Month. And on the 29th, we celebrate the National Day of Giving. So, this exciting schedule today. I mean, I got these two amazing guys with me now, and in a little while, we're going back live again at the top of the hour with another great group. But right now, we got a ton of stuff going on I have to catch you up with. So April 22nd to the 29th, from Long Beach to Puerto Vallarta to Mazatlan, Cabo, back to Long Beach, celebrating various National Day calendars and month. This is the April cruise for the Bucket List Coach Web Show. We're going to do Volunteer Month at Casa Hogar Puerto Vallarta Orphanage, Guitar Month at Cabo Wabo, Brunch Month on Sea Days with Green Eggs and Ham Restaurant, and the National Prime Rib Day on the Carnival Panorama. The info for that is at MexicoBucketListCruise.com. Make sure you check that out, MexicoBucketListCruise.com. Today, we're celebrating the Navy with Mike and Leroy. First, a quick story on the founder of Bucket List Coach Web Show, Cindy Lee. Born and raised in Northern California, now residing in Southern California, travel agent, podcast host, and gratitude gift specialist. Let me tell you, I know. Her love for aviation began as a teen living near Travis Air Force Base. Seeing that C-5 flying over is where her love for the Air Force began. Then in her early 20s, she worked for the Navy as a ship fitter on a naval submarine. And of course, that was the same year that came out Top Gun, right? Okay. And there began the love for the F-14 Tomcat. So today our guests are Mike Martin, Navy Supply Corps officer stationed in Vietnam, Santa Ana, California, and Tucson, Arizona, and Mr. Leroy Carlton, who I had an opportunity to chat with a little bit before the meeting here. He has had a great career in the Navy as an MP on the USS Eisenhower, and I'm looking forward to hearing a little more about that. Good afternoon, gentlemen. How are you doing today?
Great.
I'm doing great. Doing great.
Awesome. Well, we're going to start with you, Mike. So tell our audience about your Navy career. Give us, maybe the 5,000-foot flyover, not necessarily the drill down to the daily grind, but any amazing story or two you might want to pull out of there and share with our listeners today.
Oh, there's 100 different stories in the Naked City. But basically, I graduated from high school on a Friday.
Wait, Mike, did you just say you're naked? What? I missed that.
We're talking about the Naked City. Come on now.
I'm sorry, I digress. Go ahead.
It's before your time,
Oh, go ahead, sir.
I graduated from high school on a Friday in June of '65. The very next Monday, I started at the university, and Thursday of that week, I got this little letter from the government saying, "Greetings. You are hereby ordered to show up and find out what's going to happen with
Come
you.
join us, right?"
So I was real lucky. I had about a 30-day window. By that time, I was well into my schooling at the university. So I did receive a 2S deferment because I was in school.
Yes.
So that was very lucky. But the guy that was running the board there was a captain, Army captain. And he said, "See that gentleman over there dressed in green, Mr. Martin? 1 year from now, that's the color you're going to be wearing." So he's giving me a little hint that says, "You're not getting another 2S deferment."
Gotcha.
So I was an Air Force brat. So I'd been on the side of seeing how you live as an enlisted guy, as an NCO, and as an officer.
Right.
Well, I got a chance to see that from all angles because my stepdad and my dad were both World War II, and the stepdad actually got out, used the GI Bill, and then got a direct commission afterwards going into then the United States Air Force because it was Army Air Corps before then.
Nice.
That gave me some impetus. So I knew I couldn't fly in the Air Force, so I didn't want to do that. I knew I didn't want to carry a rifle. So be it. I ended up going down to the Navy Reserve and found a program that said, well, have we got a deal for you? They said, here, you sign this document and you'll become an enlisted reserve and the reserve program, go to meetings, do all that kind of stuff. He says, but here's a contingency contract. If you make it and get your degree within a specified period of time, we'll send you to OCS. Guess which route I took? So I ended
based on your where you were stationed and what you did for a living, it says you were an officer. So
yep. So I ended up going that route, and it was a very interesting career. After Navy Supply Corps School, which was a 6-month school in Athens, Georgia, I went through SEER School in Coronado with the where the SEAL training was.
Right.
And out of there, I got you Marines do a real good job of training the naval officers.
Yes, sir.
We were shipped up to Camp Pendleton in a bus. And I got 45 minutes at the 45 pistol range. I shot 2 clips. That was it.
Nice.
Then they took us across the road and said, okay, here's the M16. I got to shoot 2 clips on it. That was the extent of my weapons training prior to going to Vietnam and being in country, boots on the ground in Nam as part of the logistics team there.
Right.
And so the interesting part of that job is at 22, I had to learn how to manage a whole number of people, but the majority of them were South Vietnamese. I had Korean contract and ROC Marines that worked for me.
Wow.
And I had our good old Navy Seabees.
Right.
And my job was called Freight Expedite Officer, but in English, what that means, I was a trucking foreman at 22 years old, ramrodding this crew every time I was managing that job, and we ran anywhere between 25 and 40 million per shift.
Wow, crazy. So you had his career moving a bunch of stuff.
Just moving stuff. That's what everything from beer, soda, bullets, and bombs.
You call, we haul, right?
You got it. So I have a lot of stories on how things ended up being delivered and all that. And I think I told you a couple of stories already, Robin, but some of those other ones we don't want to repeat.
Maybe not live on Cindy's show, streaming on 3 platforms. So we'll reserve those for private calls, Mike. Really appreciate you. And we'll jump back here with you in just a minute. But Leroy, look, so you did the whole MP thing on a big ship, right? And I dare say you were talking about hanging out with the airplanes down on the aviation side of things, but that's what I did. I was in the helicopter thing in the Marine Corps. So tell us a little bit about what you did and where you were stationed, and any really great stories you can share with us about some times when you really enjoyed what you were doing.
Well, the great thing about being on the aircraft carrier was when you guys came aboard, I hung out with you guys.
Marines got treated like gold, right?
Yeah. I want to thank Mike for his service because he made it so I was able to come into the military. So thank you, Mike.
Sure. Welcome.
But being an MP on the aviation side, and guarding the planes and all of this great stuff, and watching the aviation side do that thing whenever planes take off and when they land, and just that noise, it was always awesome. I was attached to NAS Oceana. That's where my squadron was.
Mm-hmm.
So that squadron, if I could remember correctly, Strike Fighter Squadron VFA 11 is who I was attached to.
Okay.
And whenever we was going out, we go to the aircraft carrier, all the planes will already be there. And just sitting there guarding those planes and making sure nothing happened to those planes was just a beautiful thing, man. And getting to know all the pilots and watching these guys do their thing and looking in the cockpits of all these planes, man, it just fascinated me.
Right.
So I loved it.
Yeah, when you see the stuff they do, you just think, there's no way, man. I can't barely get behind the wheel of my car and make it all work right. But good night. And then you get in the helicopter, and it's both hands and your feet too. You're doing it.
Yeah. And I watch you guys do that stuff, man, and it's just amazing to me.
Yeah,
you know,
it's a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun. I flew a lot because I was the electronics guy. I did all the electronic systems in the helicopter. So when they had a problem, they had to recreate the issue for us. We might fly around for 2-3 hours, really whooping up on this machine, trying to get it to torque out, or a sensor to give a bad reading because we couldn't recreate the problem. Had a lot of fun doing that. Let me tell you. You ride front seat of a Cobra helicopter, and he stands that thing up on its nose like this, and you're looking at the ground. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. But yeah, I know what you mean though. When those guys get up in there and they just load up, and it's like, wow, it's so impressive. So impressive.
And I think the great thing about being on a carrier, one, because it's so large.
Yep.
And you will never see the same person twice.
Right.
It's just that big. It's just like a floating city, pretty much.
Yeah.
It is a floating city.
Yeah. So, I mean, everything you would ever need is on that carrier.
Yeah.
And you just floating and enjoying life.
So do you remember what kind of planes they had on that thing? What was your favorite one that you used to guard out there?
Well, I was always messing with the Hornets and the Super Hornets.
Oh, Cindy's having a fit right now. I see her typing away. She's like, here comes the comment.
The FA-18, I think it was called.
She was an F-14 Tomcat freak. But she's hit plane porn anytime. Anytime we start talking about the big jet, Cindy just goes nuts. It's beautiful.
Yeah, man, I love that plane, and I'm sure they probably, if they still flying them, I'm sure they are. Yeah. I'm sure they did a lot more to them than when I was in, because I came in '88.
Right.
So I'm sure they did a lot more to them now, being as though technology has come such a long way.
Sure.
I would love to see what they're doing with them now.
Yeah, no doubt. And the F-35 now is the big thing. I'm one town over from Marietta, Georgia, which is where Lockheed is, where they're building and assembling those things, and they're cranking those out now. They're like 90% run by computers. It's unbelievable.
Wow.
It's unbelievable how much of the thing runs on computers now. So, yeah. So that's awesome, Leroy. So where did you get to go stationed at, Leroy? I mean, we had information about where Mike went, but where were you during your career? Was you always on the Eisenhower? And if so, when did you ever deploy on it? Where'd you go?
Oh, well, shoots. Desert Storm, Desert Shield.
Round the globe, huh?
Yeah. Right off of the bat, Desert Storm, Desert Shield. Wow, man, I've been so many places. I've been all over the world. I think the only place I haven't been is China.
Really?
I haven't been to China.
Well, you hear that, folks. You want to travel the world, man. Get in the Navy.
Oh, yeah, that's what
I'm talking about. See the world. All right, so it's Aviation History Month, guys. So 2 questions, or I guess maybe a couple. But what's your favorite aviation movie, military or otherwise? Think about that one for a second. And then any museums you want to share. We had Chappie on from the San Diego on the what was it, Cindy? Come on, the ship. Totally pulling a blank. The Midway. Yeah. He's a docent on the Midway out there in San Diego. So I got a free inside tour of the place coming next time I can get out to California. But what about that? What's your favorite aviation movie, Mike?
Well, You'll be surprised. I have not seen Top Gun 2. I'm gonna see it here soon.
Cindy's about to get you.
I'm showing my age. I was actually watching a World War II B-17 movie just yesterday.
Wow.
And it was so old. It's the old. Remember Buck Rogers and Black and White when they had the fake airplanes flying and stuff. That's the way they were having these B-17s work. It was. I was laughing my you know what off. But you asked a question about a museum, and the place that you guys really got to go is where I was stationed on my final duty assignment.
Where's that?
Davis Mountain Air Force Base.
Davis Mountain.
Tucson, Arizona.
Okay.
That is the military aircraft storage and disposition center for all the military airplanes.
Where they're cutting up.
Boneyard.
Where they cut up the big ones.
Okay, the boneyard.
Well,
Okay.
Not only did we do the cut ups and sell the metal, but we prepped birds to sell to foreign countries. I was there in late 71, early 72. There was an A7 that crashed on one of the carriers. I don't remember which one.
Yeah.
It was a failure of a nose strut.
Okay.
We already had about half the fleet of the earlier birds, A7s. So my team of 35 sailors, we went out and took every nose strut off an A7 that was sitting out there. We X-rayed them and then filled orders that were coming in from the Aviation Supply Office in Philly.
Nice.
And so they could get the birds back in the air because they had grounded the whole fleet.
I'm sure.
So there's actually a physical museum there, and it's thousands of acres. But you got the Pima County Air Museum, also located in Tucson, Arizona.
Okay.
And that is a real unique. They have two campuses, and one of them has got all the latest birds, including the F-111s and that kind of vintage aircraft.
Wow.
But campus number 2 is built around a Titan missile silo.
Really?
And you can literally go down in the Titan missile silo.
Wow. Crazy.
So that is one of those unique.
If you didn't know, right? If you just didn't know that at one point we had missiles buried all over the United States that we could launch at Russia, right? If you didn't know that and you came across this place, you'd just be like, why is this enormous hole in the ground here? What could they have used this for? You know, it's like when world peace is actually achieved and there's grass growing all over all this stuff, and we go back and look someday, I hope kids go, wonder what they did with this, right? We don't even know what this was about. Missiles. Why would you have missiles pointed at the other, the other country?
Yeah, it's pretty amazing history. And as it turns out, I met a guy in California that was one of the officers that was in that particular silo.
Really?
And he had some stories. Actually, he was a disabled vet because something happened where he was out on one of the landings, whatever they call them, and he slipped and fell and had some severe issues. But good guy, that kind of thing. Accidents happen. So that was an industrial accident for him.
Sure.
In a freaking missile silo.
Sure. So you mentioned you were at the where they chopped up. For any of our listeners that don't know what that's all about, can you explain what that was about when they were parking planes out there?
It's just like when you decommission naval ships. It means you're taking them out of service.
Right.
That's the bottom line. Now, in the early days, Navy ships would be then docked somewhere or put it on an anchor someplace, like up in California there in the Delta area right near Vallejo. There's a huge strip of them. Now that over the 30 years I lived in that area, you saw that the number of ships whittled down because they'd be taken back in to someplace, put into dry dock, and then they take the welding machines and start taking and making scrap metal out of it.
Right.
And many of those things they're using for razor blades now, it just depends. So the same thing happens on the airplane side.
Gotcha.
So all those planes that once they get to a point that they know they're going to be tear them down for just the metal. They strip all the avionics out of it. They strip all the wire out of it. Because we had some issues with thieves coming in trying to strip
Get the copper,
brass wire.
Yeah,
That's a big thing there. We
So,
had a lot of MPs working that.
I can imagine.
So didn't but the cutting them up, if I remember correctly, the B-52 bombers specifically, we had to cut them up and park them out there so that the Russians could fly their satellites over and see that we were taking our equipment offline, and they had to do the same thing for us back when the Cold War was all starting to close up. So I remember seeing if y'all go look, you see the boneyard out there in Arizona, you can see the planes.
You can see rows and rows.
And their sections chopped up so that they could see that we were never going to be able to fly those planes again against them. And that's how we got everybody to stand down from the whole missile crisis of the 60s. It was ridiculous. So,
wow.
So Leroy, what about you? We didn't get to you. So, what a book about aviation, a museum, something that you like? And
I know you said favorite aviation movie. So, besides Top Gun, I think my favorite was Scully.
Yeah, that was a great movie.
I loved Scully. And Tom Hanks played the awesome role. So
yeah,
I think that was my top aviation movie.
Sure.
What about everybody knows Top Gun? Top Gun is the first thing somebody spit out.
Yeah.
But for me, it was Scully.
What about aviation book or museum? Something to do with aviation?
Well, it's an aviation museum here in Virginia. In Norfolk, as a matter of fact.
All right.
I've never visited, but maybe that's something I'll put on my list and do.
Cindy,
put it on the bucket list.
Bucket list, baby.
Yeah, that's something I will do.
Very cool.
And then I'll take pictures and send them to Cindy.
There you go. Well, my movie was the one about the fight at Midway, the one they just released recently. I don't know if the name of the movie was The Midway or not, but it was the one about the pilot who the gas mask thing busted in his face, his air mask, and he got lung disease and stuff. But that was a great freaking movie, dude. Those guys really, you got to see how they hammered it out. And then I was a big Black Sheep Squadron kid back in my day, Baba Black Sheep.
Baba Black Sheep.
Yeah. Had what was the guy?
Pappy Boyington.
Pappy Boyington. I kept saying Papa in my head. Pappy Boyington. Yeah, that bird was incredible. That was one of the greatest designed airplanes ever in the world, I think, before we got jets and started losing the tactics of having a propeller driven airplane. That's pretty cool. So all right, so anyway, how are you guys going to practice gratitude this month? Leroy, tell me, because it's the National Month of Gratitude, right? So what are you thinking? You got something special you do this month specifically, or all the time because you're just a grateful guy, or what?
I usually go to Fort Lee Army Base pretty much at least once a week.
Okay.
And I usually go there and talk to the new soldiers that's coming in. And like right now, it's, Thanksgiving is right around the corner. And there's a lot of guys that couldn't go home for Thanksgiving.
Right.
So, I will go on post and invite a couple of soldiers to come to the house and eat.
Awesome.
Just to get away from the base. I know you miss your families and stuff like that. So that's usually what we would do.
Sure. I got a funny story about that real quick before I get to you, Mike. I got invited to come to a Thanksgiving dinner with a family off base when I was in the Marine Corps, and I was brand new. I was up in North Carolina, and I couldn't get home that year. And we went to this lady's house, and I knew her son, and this amazing spread, all the trimmings, all had the gravy all over the thing, and the green bean salad and the cranberry. And I'm in my C class, right? I got the short sleeve thing on because it wasn't really cold out that day, and I'm all dressed up in my wool pants and trousers. And dang it, I put the plate too close to the edge of the table. And when I went to cut into that turkey, I pushed down that plate, and it just pasted itself on my chest. I didn't get the first bite off of that plate before I was wearing that whole plate of food.
I bet that's one of your best plates too.
And you know what? they were so gracious to me. That woman got me some clothes because her son was about the same size as me, put it all into wash, made me a fresh plate. Everybody blew it off. We sat around and talked for hours while my clothes washed and dried, and it was a really great time. But man, let me tell you, I'll never forget. I don't care how old I am. I'll be as old as Mike and still remember that story, man.
Yeah, there you go.
So, Mike, what about you? What are you grateful for this month? Or
Well,
how
I
are you
hate you
practicing
guys.
that?
For me, I look at every day with a sense of gratitude when I can wake up and I can swing my legs out of that bed.
Yeah, buddy.
I agree.
I am being a Vietnam vet. I am one of the survivors. That's the best way for me to say it. Although, because I was in country, boots on the ground, I was infected with Agent Orange.
Yeah.
And I have been fighting different medical things, ever since, and I still am today. So
Right.
my gratitude, and I'm extremely grateful to all those that have followed us and have, especially when the draft went away. So now we're dealing with all volunteers, guys. It is a different mindset of giving and serving today than it was back. I got drafted. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, many of us grew up in military families, so we had an inkling, and they were teaching us different values back in education back in those days.
Gotcha.
They don't teach that stuff anymore. In fact, in some cases, they're teaching against patriotism and et cetera, et cetera. I won't get on too much of a soapbox other than I've been in the schools, I've taught, and I teach in a non-political way.
Right.
In fact, my buddy who is an Army infantry guy, he and I do our talks, and we always let the teachers know we're non-political. The group we represent is non-political. We're not going to talk politics.
Right.
Well, if you want to talk about the politics that were going on back then, we'll talk to you about that. Okay? Because that's history.
Right.
Yes.
It's history you cannot wash away.
Right.
Which is a lot of what they're trying to do these days.
Sure.
So,
Sure.
but I'm to the right. My friend Bill says, "Well, Mike's to the right of Ronald Reagan, and I'm to the left of Genghis Khan." So, what do you think? And we talk, and you heard us talk. We're good buddies.
Right. So if that can happen, anything's possible, right?
Yeah. So it's pretty interesting.
Right.
Interesting stuff about that. I wanted to share one more thing with you, Robin.
Yes, sir.
The assignment that I had with the Marines was at the Marine Corps helicopter station, Santa Ana, Tustin, where we had 46s and 53s in there.
Yes, sir.
And we had the big hangars. You've been, if you've been in California, the big hangar, the old blimp hangar.
Yeah.
Well, you asked about a unique thing. Well, during that period of time, so that would have been late 70, early 71. There was some of the rebel kids were going around and they were trying to hit reserve armories to steal weapons.
Okay.
And they were afraid that the reserve armory that was right on our border, on one of the borders of the base. So the MP, I was instructed to help the MPs identify the sniper guys that we had, and we put them on the top of those hangars. And their job was to, every 2 hours, they'd switch somebody out, but their job was to use their scopes and make sure nobody penetrated the fence line to get into that armory.
Wow.
And this is here, CONUS, in the United States.
Right.
We're afraid of something like that going down.
Right.
And that was in 71. Come on, guys.
Yeah.
I'll give you a real good story.
All right.
And it's an aviation story, by the way.
There we go. See that? Dragged it out, you guys. We hung around long enough.
I had to go and be stationed in Lackland Air Force Base because I had to go to the Air Force Police Academy.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the great things of being in the Air Force Police Academy, one of my duties was to stand and guard the stealth bomber.
Cool.
And you talking about an awesome plane.
Yeah.
To be standing next to that thing, looking at it up front and personal.
Yeah.
I couldn't walk around it. My post was like right on the side of the plane.
Wow.
And that's where I had to stand. It took everything in me not to just walk around the plane, because Lord knows I wanted to.
Yeah.
But I think that was one of the greatest, seeing that plane up front and personal.
Yeah, no doubt. That's a pretty neat piece of technology right there.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
good stuff. That's good stuff. Yeah, we had a really cool C5A Galaxy story. You know, the largest plane in the free world, and I was on a helicopter base in North Carolina, so we had to load helicopters onto that plane one time that I was there. I'm sure they've done it plenty of times, but the event of that plane landing on the helicopter base. It was almost too short. I think it probably was, but these guys, you know, they know what they're doing with those things. But they would bring that plane in and it would loop. It would loop like 3 times around the base, slowing down more and more and more and more. And by the last time it came around, you thought the thing was just going to fall out of the sky. It's like, how can it even be up still, right? And it would just come drifting down, just clipping the treetops at the end of the runway, right? And then he would hit the ground and pull all the reverse thrust and everything and make it no problem. But when they took off, now loaded with helicopters, right? Now they would back it up to where the tail was literally in the trees, right? I mean, they're backed up as far as they can go till the wheels are almost falling off the tarmac. They lock the brakes. They run the engines up to about 100+%, right? About 115 mil spec, and then let the brakes go. And it's the most incredible thing to see this enormous, super heavy thing just barely start creeping along and start lifting up. The square footage of those wings is so much that it just doesn't take a whole lot of airflow to create that low pressure above the wing that lifts the whole thing up. And it's almost weird to the brain because it's not really moving fast enough, you know? So great thing to watch, a feat of science and marvel of technology, watching that thing take off and land on a little tiny runway. But so I think we've come to the end of our show, guys. So I really appreciate you guys coming. It's great hanging out with you, Mike and Leroy, making your acquaintance today. I'm so grateful that you guys come and hang out with us and be a part of the Bucket List Coach Web Show Live. So we're going to go ahead and pop you guys out into the green room, and we will see you later. Take care, guys.
Take care.
All right, everybody. So that's our show for the day. Had a great time subbing again for Miss Cindy Lee. Thank you to everybody that came today and watched. Make sure you subscribe to the Bucket List Coach Web Show Live on YouTube for a free ebook on how to bucket list. Next show is in about 25 minutes, 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Learn more about Cajun's aviation dream, carrying on the legacy of Major Stephen Cajun Del Bagno, making young pilots' aviation dreams come true. All right, folks, that's our show for today. My name is Robin Stern. I am your Google guru, and I love you all. Go out there and change the world.